Napa la musa moro tenepiga. Yadeza manita wali. Notato, what did you compone? You go to the football for the kendo. I forget me first. You go no matter. Naba, 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 Prophet Neblava la Musa, more than a big. Big dog on the truth teller. The prophet Neblava la Musa, more than a big. The chosen one, the Messiah. Basa ile muge naba Mati otobile bana bilege naba Isina basa ile muge naba Bikizi yomite difese Bikizi yomite difese Amerite biya no ifese Amerite biya no ifese Anya kizi yomite nyamfese Kizi yomite difese Anya dile maheru shenye fese Amerite biya no inana fotelu Inana bao Tufunu Naba 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 Maheru Naba Naba Prophet Neblava la Musa, more than a big. The dog on the truth teller. The prophet Neblava la Musa, more than a big. The chosen one, the Messiah. He is the chosen one and the Messiah. He's the light and the way. The wisdom of our days. The healer, the preacher, the truth teller. Bangati to Bunige. Listen up a second. What you're before the chosen one, the Messiah. Listen up a second. What you're before Listen up a second. What you're before
even up to 100 AD. 100
Welcome
AD.
to the Wisdom of the Nile show.
The Romans
Ujjayi, and welcome to the Wisdom of the Nile show, broadcasting on Bless FM. And we're bringing you wisdom from the Nile Valley civilization. Now, this is knowledge that's been taught to us, that's been preserved for thousands of years by certain indigenous traditional people. And so, first of all, I would like to acknowledge the divine world and acknowledge the world of the ancestors. And today also is our divine holiday, which at the moment I think we have our divine holidays going on at the temple now, really, Zemzem, which is open to the general public. So my name is Nehibsa Nesibik. My name means strong heart of a guardian, and my co-host is
Ujjayi, everyone. It's Kasati Hekama.
And what does your name, Kasati, means?
Kasati means spirit of a guardian. Hekama means by the power and authority of the Neter Amen, who the West refer to as Amen, Amen.
Amun, and all the various combinations of names, but this still means the same, Amen, Amen.
Amen, Amma.
Yeah, which
it's the same Neter.
I mean, for those who are religious, really, they would see that word used or in the Bible all the time, really. But, well, I don't think they fully understand and appreciate what it's actually coming from. So they're actually giving praise without consciously realizing what they're doing. Yeah,
it's
so
Kemetic Neter.
Amen was the second self-created, yeah, from what we would call the first Trinity. And so, as we say, once you have gone and graduated from the first stage of initiation, which that's known as the Per-Hank level, and Per-Hank actually means the house of life. Ankh is a symbol of life, and Per in the Medu that we're taught represents the house. So it's actually the house of life. And within that initiation, coming from that house of life, this is where we're prepared, where the initiation prepare us to actually step out into life. Yeah, because at the moment we're not actually living. Most of us out here, really, we're just existing and being controlled like robots by the system. So once you go through the initiation, then you'll get to understand really how you've been kind of kept in the dark, really, so to speak, really. So you're not actually living. We're not actually living. So we're going through Per-Hank level. It actually kind of gives you the tools. So when you go through the initiation, you're given like your Kemetic name, which is actually recognized by the earth as well. Yeah. So we get back that attachment to who we are, and the earth recognizes who you are. So when someone calls your name, it resonates, you know. And so, you know, we've had programs where we've speak about, like, say, the importance of name. Yeah, and so our name is something very important, really. So most of us really was taken away in through slavery and so on, and even on the motherland, some people are forced to take upon names that doesn't reflect them. Yeah, so we lose that attachment to Mother Nature, to the earth, which when the physical body dies, that's where it's supposed to go back to as well, not through a burning process as some kind of religions or some other denomination do. So once you get your name, we're also given like our destiny, our purpose, what we actually came here to serve, and which is important, because from there really, at least you know what you came here to do. Yeah. So that's another part of the initiation, that you're given back a direction, so you know who you are and what you actually came here to fulfill. In initiation, what it does do for us it actually gives us the tools really that we need to face the challenges that life is going to throw at us, the system. And you know, as we gave honor to the ancestors and to the divine world, and as I said to, earlier on, today's divine holy day, they are some of the tools that we're given, learning, rekindling back how and what we should be doing on a daily basis, really, in recognizing that what stood before us. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. So it's important, really, to understand, really, like how, you know, even to present yourself to the divine world and to your ancestors, you know, the cleansing process, all the different tools that you need, that you can stand up strong again, as that we used to do before. The initiation provides you with all those. It gives you the tools that your daily challenges, just something simple like getting up, getting into your car, driving down the road, and just understanding that, you know, you've got to try to exercise control, emotional control. You know, we have the 77th commandment, you know, to tell you thou shalt not get hungry, and different actual commandments there that helps you to try to evolve as a human being. And when I spoke about, like, say, to fulfill your destiny, it gives you that tool, really, to help to face those challenges, to get back to where we're supposed to be standing. So, and this is, you know, this is what helps us to evolve. So, where do we get this knowledge from? That's a big question. And for us here in the West, we are privileged, really, to get this knowledge, which was brought to us by a Kemetic Dogon high priest. And it's not just a normal Dogon high priest, because as we give you a little bit about his life, and this month is actually symbolic, really, to our founder of the Earth Center, who is Prophet Nebnaba Lumusa Morandenebig. And he's also known as the Makaru, which in the initiation we know him as that means like the truth teller. And so he was able to predict and to see certain things, really, and this is where we are now. He's got that insight into the truth of what's really happening, as opposed to what society is bringing to us and giving to us, really, that we're conforming to. So Nebnaba himself, he actually came from a village in Burkina Faso, of a lineage of healers, and they can trace their history back, their names, their history and everything, back to the Nile Valley civilization. And Nebnaba, you know, he was a highly educated, very intelligent man, and throughout his education, both in colonial and traditional educational and spiritual traditional kind of teachings, he was able to excel to the level above his masters. And Nebnaba, he became one of the most knowledgeable spiritual high priests of the Dogon people. Well, the school that we're in is called the Omtam school, but Omtam is more than that. It actually is, as I said, it's more than that. And Master Naba, he became a master in the Omtam science, amongst other things. Now, Kusati, my Hatini here, she's going to just give you, we just want to just highlight the importance of Master Nebnaba and Malusa Morandenebig, because as I said, this month is symbolic to him, and the Herb Center wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Master Naba. So it's only fitting, really, right, that we acknowledge and we know who the person really is. Because sometimes with the information that we're disseminating and trying to share, we know that there are other beliefs and other different segments of people out there that's got different views and different values. And one of the questions is, what make you think really like what you've got here really is authentic in any way at all? Well, what is given to us really is not forcing it on us. So it's for you to come and actually see the knowledge, the information for yourself, and then you can make that decision clearly for yourself, really, whether or not it's credible or not. But just to give you like a background of his visions and, you know, what his accomplishments always trying to achieve, my Anthony Kasati is going to give you a brief rundown.
Ujai. Okay, so the Earth Center's history can be traced back to Nebnaba's revolutionary organization dedicated to cultural preservation and established in Africa Merita as the HEPRA Association in 1980. Although the mission of KEPTA, which is the Kemetic word for the Earth Center, the mission is a very old one. The institution was first established in the West in 1996. It was difficult at first to establish the organization in Merita. Coming from traditional Merita and fighting the stronghold that European ideologies had on the minds of Africans, Nebnaba faced animosity from European institutions and disinterest from Africans infatuated with Europe. So he shifted his ideas. He said, let me go to where European is, and then try to start from there. So he initially traveled to Germany and started his activities, but ultimately settled in the United States and opened his first school, the Earth Center. And this was established in Chicago in 2001. And by 2005, there was a second school opened up in New York City. Master Naba established a bridge from the traditions to the colonized world. These traditions have been preserved and protected for thousands of years. Today, his legacy lives on through his life's work, which endures and impacts countless lives all over the world. The Earth Center continues to grow and evolve today. The leadership strives to uphold the quality that Master Naba established, and under his continued guidance from the ancestral world and the blessings and direction from the Kemetic temples, the Earth Center has expanded to include 10 schools across 3 continents, as well as the Het Aisha Healing Center, which is in Togo. There are many ways that you can support the mission, such as becoming a donor to preserve indigenous lands and culture through charitable projects. You can also honor your ancestors by reclaiming your ancestral culture as an Umtam initiate, or by benefiting from traditional health wisdom through the Ancaster Natural Healing Branch, which was also established by Master Naba. So Prophet Neb Naba Lamusa Mori Denebig was peerless in the modern world. He represented a glimpse into humanity's past, a past full of great men and women who inspired the greatness we see in his work. With that work, he repaved the path for us to walk, reinvesting in ourselves and our bloodlines. He planted a seed, and even before it could grow into the great tree it was to become, he returned home to death. Today, that tree is growing mighty, and more individuals fleeing the enslavement of today's world are finding shade beneath it. Some are benefiting from its fruits and planting their seeds in order to continue rebuilding the sacred forest of our ancestors. Prophet Neb Naba was a shining example of the wisdom and grandeur of our Kemetic ancestry. His baton is still raised high by the members of the Earth Centers around the globe. So to learn more about the history linked to Master Naba and the river of knowledge flowing behind him, there are the Firefly magazines, which are the Firefly publishing house is a branch of the Earth Center, and that was the branch that disseminates the knowledge through the books and the magazines. So in order to access more of that knowledge, you can go to the website, which is www.theearthcenter.org, and center is spelled CENTER. The London Temple, we have 2 temples in the UK, one in London and one in Coventry. You can contact us on 0208 558 3678. So that's 0208 558 3678, and that's for the London Temple. For the Coventry Temple, it's 024 7626 6859. And to email us, it's enquiries-uk@theearthcenter.org. And then the UK website is www.theearthcenteruk.com.
Hello for that. Jai, and welcome back. Welcome back. Um, yeah, so we just want to continue just a little bit about Master Nabra and how the school actually kind of end up coming to us here in the West. So the importance of the Naba, they were one of the important bloodlines that actually migrated across the Sahara Desert really to the west part of Africa there. The Naba bloodline, well, they end up in the Burkina Faso, that side there really, Ghana. That's where some of the people migrated to, Benin, Togo. All this was like from the invasion from the Persians and the Romans. And again, people would probably question if, like, say, the knowledge that we have is so great, then how is it that we're able to, or we're in a position that we are now? Well, our ancestors realized really right, everything goes through a cycle. And that was a part of that cycle that we had to go through to be where we are here now. And so that migration really was, they saw it coming. So slowly there was a migration really, and this is how these important bloodlines, many different bloodlines that carried different parts of the knowledge, you know, dispersed to different areas really, you know. And so the idea was for them to preserve the knowledge, and this knowledge is what we kind of is passed down from father to son, mother to daughter, and it goes through initiation. This was preserved in the bush, and it's still going on in the bush. The initiation that we have here, like in the West, is more a theoretical side, whereas in the bush, you're hands-on, you're actually in connection back with nature. And so being in that contact with nature in many different ways, many different areas of our life, we see the different positive results we get with having that connection back. Anyway, from the migration, as I said, the Neb Naba himself really, he was given permission by the Gulmu kind of kingship, that he sought permission, and he was given permission to bring the knowledge here in the West. And that he did that. The first school that was opened up was in 1998 in Chicago, and further school was actually kind of opened up after that. I think he opened up about 3 schools. 3 schools in the US in Manu, and he further went back into Burkina, Ouagadougou, and he opened up the first Earth Center school there, and that's still continuing. At present, you've got the article there to go to the 10th school?
Yeah.
Who's going to read it? Yeah. So we had 10 in total, 10 schools really. So that's where we are now with the Health Center global wise. No, as we were saying before, this month is actually the month where Prophet Neb Naba actually transitioned. And this month is the month of what we would know as Sibek. And so Neb Naba, he actually transitioned on the 15th of Eb Sensini. That is a Kemetic name for this month, and it's governed by the deity, the god Sibek. And on the Gregorian calendar, it's actually the 21st of July. So Prophet Neb Naba, so coming up, is it next week sometime? We're going to be honoring that day by paying homage by fasting on that day, and there'll be a feasting as well. Yeah. And is that going to be open up to the general public? Yeah. Well, we're not sure at the moment there really, yeah, but that's the day that we're going to honor the Prophet Neb Naba Lumusa Morendenevik. And as I said, without the work that he's done to actually come and establish what he's given us here in the West, you know, to give us some direction, you know, we're honored really. Yeah. And so we just want to move on a little bit, and go into one of the topic areas that we'll be covering. And so what we're going to be looking at is something that's affecting most of us out there really who are, whether you've got children or not, we're all parents still really in a certain way. But it's about parenthood. Yeah. But what sort of make this came to my forefront really, why I more or less kind of delved down this road, was it was interesting that over the lockdown period, through this pandemic and this coronavirus thing here, it had an effect on people in many different ways, some good and some bad. But what I noticed really was from, certain demographic of people that I spoke to, is that the time that they were able, the quality time that they were able to re-establish back some kind of relationships with their families. When we spend most of our time outside of the home and we get very little time with the family. So for some people it was like a holiday. It was an opportunity. Some parents really, they've from their children 3 to 6 months old, in the work cycle, they're forced or make the decisions really to, I wouldn't say abandon, but our children are placed in the nanny state from a very young age in a lot of cases, right, where there's no bonding, that detachment from the children really. A lot of mothers are faced with that, and they don't really get that opportunity even to get to know their children, of what needs that they have that they can provide, because they're chasing, that 9 to 5 really. And in a lot of cases, by the time they recognize that they've got a child there, is grown up into an adult and left home, and never really get the opportunity really to be that parent, to know what, it's just about what we were talking about existing before. So we see a lot of the family values and things as eroded. For whatever reasons, people would make these decisions, and at sometimes it's detriment to our families, never getting the opportunity to assert any real qualities and values that, as parents, really, our children requires, that it's needed, it's necessary. Because, what society wants to give people now, this Western society, is that you can do anything you want. There shouldn't be no boundaries on anything. And everything, even within nature, has its boundary. Even within the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, they've all got boundaries and limits to the things that can happen from what can't happen. But we seem to be one of these species, or what society now is trying to bring us into this chaos, is that there's no boundaries and there's no repercussion to the choices that we make. And we see they're doing that in a very kind of upfront kind of a way. It's in front of our face, because they make these laws and legislations and things like that actually takes away certain parenting skills, qualities, things that you would probably like to impart with your children. But society, you're saying one thing, because you've got limited time really to import anything into your children, because you're at work all day, you come home, you're on that treadmill, they're trying to provide something for them to eat, to that cycle of going through it really, right, gives you limited time. So society, basically, they're the ones that's actually become parent to your children. Yeah. So it's interesting then, as I said, through this COVID, some parents was able then really to even try to rekindle back and just get that communication of trying to recognize the values of their family. That's all broken down. And if there's no family, then the parenting and everything becomes more difficult, because there's no balance there. And oftentimes that's what we're left with, really, society being parents to our children. And what they're offering our children, they're giving them really they're making all the decisions for them, all their social values and everything like that. There's no room for spiritual growth with what the system is actually offering our children out there. We're just conditioned to become like robots. That's the state of affair that we are now. We're just being controlled by what society has defined for us, really. And you know, we're out there. The mothers are out there. They're doing their best, really. Sometimes trying to provide for the best that they can for their children. Fathers, they're out there trying to do the same thing. In many cases, within our community, they're in low-paid jobs, so hence they're having to be doing long hours, long unsociable hours, really trying to graft, really, to earn the dollar so that they can sustain the household and provide for the family. There's the cases as well. It was talking about one-parent family where there's a lot of absent fathers, and so they, by being absent, obviously there's no kind of say input from them there at all. So it just makes us wonder, really. We've had all this 3-4 months, really, like, of this lockdown. It's a time for those who really want to change things, really, right, to be more involved, to try to improve their parenting skill, to see what their children actually need, to make those adjustments that is needed, really, to make the difference. So when all your parenting skill really basically are affected by what the social structure has put there in place, in that sense, we really can't be surprised, really, like, at the dysfunctionality of our children out there, because we're not actually being the parent to those children there, really. Now parents seem to spend more time buying off their children, really, in this Western society, really, trying to buy back the time that they haven't spent with them by giving them superficial and material things, really. We see, like, the children, they're very dependent on things like video games, the latest trainers, all these superficial things, all these superficial values that society, they're not real things, really. They're nothing really, like, say, for us, for the children, and really to hold on to give them what they need to evolve into what society or what we want them to be. So it's like the way the system basically has taken control of our children is all structural. It's planned. I mean, when we look at, say, like, you buy a car, you have a car. Within the system, you're forced to register that car. And when you get that registration document back after you register your car, from being the owner, the person who bought the car, you are the one that actually find the fundings, the cash and everything, really, to purchase it. And after you register it, they send you back a document, and it has on there that you're now, from being the owner, you become like the keeper, the registered keeper. And it's the same thing with our children out there. We're forced to register our children at birth, and they give you back a birth certificate, which ultimately, at the end of the day, you now become like the keeper of that child. But they seem to own your child, and they seem to have that control, really, right? As from then till death, they actually own us, not just our children, but we grow into adults. And this is why the system has so much control over us. And this is why it's so important, really, right, that initiation and us taking back our parental skills to manage our children, to impart to them now the values that they need, really, to be back human again, as opposed to being robots. And even as human, there is still another level that we have to ascend to, but that's another kind of thing that we'll go into. Yeah. So we'll just take a short little interlude again, and we're going to read you.
Continue, don't you?
Yeah, we're going to read you an article from the Exeter leading up to our next part of the show. Jay, and we're back again. I'm hoping that you're enjoying a bit of drum and bass. We're just going to read you like a article from the Exeter.
Yeah, this is an initiatic tale from the Heshbata, their Kemetic initiation stories. This one is entitled Love That Kills, When Emotions Stand in the Way of Responsibility. The modern human, in his conquest of new concepts of liberty, lives through many contradictions that in the end often place him much lower than the people he is quick to call barbarians or primitive. The relationship between the masculine gender and the feminine gender leaves the man and the woman frustrated because they are never able to apply their version of what we never hesitate to call perfect love. The two find themselves frustrated, not knowing to which extent the other will tolerate being loved rather than allowing the other to love their own way. With regard to interpersonal relationships in our society, love notions are synonymous with possession. Possessive behavior rejects all forms of pressure in the name of freedom and liberty. Love relationships that forget to define freedom falls victim to our perceptions of our responsibility for others, like a sort of social pressure that needs to be rejected. Every individual wants to be accepted as belonging to the society, even if their behavior works towards the destruction of the society. Maybe we should either relearn responsibility for each other or simply redefine the moral values of the society. The story I'm going to tell happened in an oasis of Sahara Desert on the route of the salt between the city of Marrakesh and Timbuktu. The chief of a nomadic family had decided to establish the family in an oasis. The son of the chief was simply the typical image of what we call a spoiled child. No one in this small oasis would dare to complain to his father. It was clear that it was never this way before. All the children of the oasis were well educated. They knew how to respect elders and they always listened to advice. Every child in the oasis was a child of every father and every mother of the oasis. Every child could be punished or rewarded by every adult. Yes, every child but the son of the chief of the oasis. The chief himself, as being above the rest, was without a doubt thinking that his son deserved to be spoiled. Once the inhabitants of the oasis came to the chief and complained about the activities of his son. But he's the only child, answered the chief between two hiccups that visibly were covering a smirk. And since then, nobody dared to say anything. As the African wise men will say, a human being knows that he is not forced to hate you if you refuse to listen to his words of truth and justice, but he knows that the wrong never survive. One day a caravan was going through the oasis and a nomadic man stopped to drink. He found a corner where a clear stream was flowing and bent down to drink. The son of the chief was not far, and from his position he could see the testicles of the stranger, who was bent on his knees and had his face very close to the water. He picked a thorn from some grass and approached very quietly. At the moment when the stranger appeared to be concentrating on the sweet taste of the water he was drinking, the son of the chief poked his testicles. The stranger jumped, and in a sort of uncontrolled reaction to protect his testicles, he slipped and fell into the stream. The son of the chief exploded with a big laugh. He was amused with the situation. The stranger looked at him with the eyes that were expressing all the hate of the world. Realizing that the offender was only a child, he then asked the boy, "O young risk-taker, are you not afraid to be punished by your parents?" "Oh no, my father is the chief of this oasis, and he forbid anybody to lay a hand on me," said the child. "I see," answered the stranger. After a short moment, he put his hand in his pocket and brought out a nugget of gold and gave it to the child, saying, "This is a gift, O young risk-taker. If those who think that they love you do not dare to punish you for your bad actions, I will do more. I will compensate you for your bad actions. I am just a stranger passing by." "Oh, thank you very much," said the child, very excited. The stranger quickly climbed back on his camel and disappeared under the horizon. Weeks passed. Then one day, while the chief of the oasis was relaxing and drinking the traditional Atawe tea of the desert under the shade of a palm tree, he saw a group of women coming to him that were crying and carrying to him the body of a child that appeared to be dying from wounds caused by a sword. "Oh, chief, your child has been assassinated by a stranger," the women were shouting. "Your child is dead." The chief received the information like a cold shower. He started asking, why would a stranger attack a child? One of the women explained that apparently one day the son of the chief came to buy a big needle and a lot of other things with a gold nugget that he explained was given to him by a stranger as a reward for the fact that he had poked the stranger's testicles with a thorn. He said that before the stranger left, he made him understand that he would make a lot more gold if he was poking people's testicles with iron needles, said the woman to the chief. Apparently he went back to the stream with a big needle, waiting for strangers to come and drink, expecting that some would expose their testicles. When he found somebody that exposed his testicles, he stabbed them with the big needle that he had just brought with all his strength. While the stranger was groaning and writhing in pain,
The chief of the sun was laughing strongly and loudly. The son of the chief was laughing strongly and loudly. The stranger then pulled out his sword and stabbed him in the stomach. The chief, in a momentum of desperation, brought out his sword and asked every strong man of the oasis to come with him in pursuit of the stranger. This stranger is an assassin, a vicious criminal that did not hesitate to attack a child. We have to avenge the death of my son, he said. The people did not appear to agree with him. Really? Asked a voice in the crowd. Which one of the strangers will we pursue? The one who gave him a golden nugget for poking his testicles with a thorn? Or the one who killed him for poking his testicles with a needle? And what about those who thought they loved him by not putting any limits or any restrictions on him? Those who watched him slowly gathering within him all the recipes that would make him a bad person. Those who watched him prepare himself for his assassination. Those who helped him prepare his own premature death. Where are the responsibilities? His voice was resonating in the chief like a bronze bell, vibrating to the depth of his soul. He relived many situations where he simply let his emotions of a father loving his son take over his responsibilities as a parent, preparing his child for the adult world. The end.
Well, for that. And I'll take it that if you listen to that story, we'll get some just to see when parenting skill and certain values has been lowered, then that's a consequence really that could happen when we don't have no parental control for our children out there. And so, leading on to this part of the show, we've got like a special attorney from abroad, they're in Merita, as we know as Africa. And we just like to bring in the initiate Ujai Hatani.
Ujai Hatane.
Ujai, how are you?
We're good, thanks.
Oh.
And we're speaking to...
This is Jazra Shamzura.
And welcome to the Wisdom of the NILE show. We're happy to have you on the line and to share some of your knowledge. And we just first of all like to kind of greet you, say happy divine holy day.
Okay.
Can you hear us properly? Sorry.
Yeah, I can hear you, son.
Yes, good. Yeah. So welcome, as you say, welcome to the divine. Could you first just share with us, say what your name actually means, please?
Okay. Okay. Ujai to everybody. Yeah, my name is Jazra Shamzura. I'm an initiate of the Earth Center, and playing many roles, one of which, the relevant one for this conversation, is that I am a mother also. I have 7 children in my house, so this is a topic that affects my reality very closely. But yeah, to answer your question, Jazra is the command or the order of Ra, and my last name Shamzura is follower of Ra.
Duao for that.
So Hatani, can you tell us how long you've been an initiate with the Earth Center?
Sure. I joined classes in New Brooklyn, New York, back in 2008, and then after the completion of the first year, I had a graduation in 2009. So I spent some time in New York, and then a lot of my initiation time was also in Chicago, at our center there on the south side of Chicago, and the north side of Chicago. And then from there, I spent some time in some different locations for shorter stints. And then my last stint was in Baltimore, Maryland for a couple of years, helping with that school there before making my move 2 years ago to West Africa.
Okay, so before we discuss your move to America, what was your journey leading up to the Earth Center and Umtam initiation?
Well, I had a lot of colonial schooling growing up in the U.S. And actually, I myself was born in the south of India, but I was raised in the United States, and my parents had immigrated to the United States, so I had some different values, kind of straddling two different value systems in some way, but that reality of having a different culture than the one that I was growing up in at a certain point in my life had me asking a lot of questions about who I am and where my roots are, and just seeking, sort of becoming a seeker, looking for the truth and the answers to many things. So that journey took me a lot of different places, abroad and within the United States. And then I was actually living in Boston, Massachusetts, for the couple of years preceding joining initiation, and started to train as a lawyer, doing criminal defense specifically. And I came across an individual that I was working with who was taking classes with the Earth Center, and that sort of opened up the doors to starting to push my seeking in that direction. And I eventually moved to New York and didn't waste time trying to find this place called the Earth Center. So once I stepped in, I never stepped back out. The answers I was seeking for the preceding 10 or 15 years, I got all those answers and much, much more once I crossed the threshold of the initiation within the Earth Center.
Okay, Duawu. So was your initial foundation, your spiritual system, based on Hinduism?
No, it wasn't. Actually, though Hinduism is the predominant religion within India, the particular state, the southwest of India called Kerala, where I come from, actually has a pretty large Christian population, because of the proselytization that happened in that region. So it's got the largest Christian population within the country. So I have that as my upbringing, though I did explore Hinduism at some point in my life. That wasn't the root of where my family is coming from.
Okay.
I shouldn't say root, but they didn't have that in their near history.
Okay. It's very interesting. Very interesting. So how did the teaching that the knowledge that you came across, how did that impact on you? As you said, you were searching for so long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it impacted in so many different ways. It's hard to really put it into, a few sentences, but I think what I can say is there's a foundation a foundation that all of us need, and many of us are probably seeking in one way or another. And without that foundation, it's hard to have the stability that we need to make the progress that we wish to see in our lives. And that stability is affected by so many different things, but namely the things that are in the immaterial or in the spiritual realm that maybe we never gave attention to for me, in the upbringing that I had in the West. There were many things that I had, many resources that I had access to, but that resource of a spiritual foundation, spiritual knowledge, taking care of the things that many generations preceding us, they always took care of, that would then give us the stability that we don't have to wake up wondering, why am I feeling like this, or having depressive tendencies, or a lack of a goal, or feeling like you don't have a purpose, like all these kind of things that many of us in the modern world are experiencing. It wasn't like that for a long time, and that's like a more recent way that people have to experience life. So that's not, that is something that really began to shift once I started to address, the kind of the holistic aspect of the human being that in the West that approach wasn't there, and namely, addressing those things in the material realm, but then also, our master, the Prophet Nabila Musa Muruddin, he was so brilliant in the way that he designed the initiation, and the attention that the way the initiation is laid out, the curriculum is laid out, the attention that we're forced to give to our own personal development, our emotional control, our tolerance, all of these kind of just very basic things, also puts a very solid, it contributes to a very solid foundation if you're able to sort of evolve and accomplish the things that he has laid out, assimilate them into your life. So over time, over a lot of, trial, tribulation, challenges, if you're able to persevere, there's an evolution that takes place, and that can be very rewarding too, though the challenges don't finish, but you can start to see some progress in many facets.
Sure. So our topic really is on parenthood, really, and to be a parent, first of all, we have to know what the roles are of the parents, really, before we could actually start saying what they should be doing from what they shouldn't be doing. So, from the traditional aspect, what is the importance then of the family, or what is placed on the family? We see that the tradition, they do value the family as something very significant. So, could you kind of say break down like the roles of the responsibility of mother and father, and that responsibility that befalls them, really?
Okay, sure. Yeah, so from my experience, experience of traveling here to Merita, to the pilgrimage travels over the years, and then now living here, but also having exposure to some other older cultures that have tradition embedded in it. Family is such a sacred part of a person's life. And when we say family, from a traditional perspective, we're not just talking about the nuclear family of who my mother and father are and who my sisters and brothers are within that unit. But the family is much bigger than that. What we would consider in the West our extended family, or what we call our relatives on the mother's and father's side, those are all people who can play a very intimate role in a child or a person's life. And then beyond that, you have a community that you're embedded in, which you build very strong bonds with people in that community as well, that then play a role as family. So that is very key, because when we want to talk about a child, we're not just looking at the child's dependency on one woman and one man, or one, whatever the situation may be. There's multiple people that are playing a role or putting a hand in the development of the human being. And that's not even considering the instructions, that they're getting outside of those circles. So, and then here with the initiation, we can introduce this notion of also having a spiritual family too. But that's like another community that you're considering you're close to you enough that you can call them family. So, so I just want to, mention that, because a lot of the challenges that we may face as parents raising children in the West may have maybe a result of the lack of our ability to, our energies are spread thin. And so if that thinness is there, the child is going to experience that. So if there's a fullness with the people and the numbers and the ones that you can turn to, then the possibilities become much more. So, yeah, I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, no, for that, because at the end of the day, in Western calm society here, really, we're just looking at who we see in front of us and not having that extension. And it's very important, because we see here in the West, like where we are in England and the UK, especially like say where I grew up, at one stage we were able to live within that community. Now, because of social changes, like what they call it now, this new gentrification and that kind of stuff, we find now that families can no longer live within the same community, because they can't afford to live in that community. So that support where you're speaking about, like you can't police your child 24/7 by yourself. It takes more than that, and the system seems to recognize that. So the structure that's set up now is to make the family unit here dysfunctional, and and so, like, the significance role, within the tradition, both the men and the woman have separate roles and responsibilities. You can share with us, like, say, your experience or knowledge of that as a woman.
Sure.
What would be expected of you as to the male side?
Sure. Well, certainly I can speak to the woman's side. In Merita, and also I guess I will speak in India to India as well. The roles of a man and the roles of a woman are very distinct. Maybe things are starting to transform somewhat as modernization starts to hit traditional places too. but generations past, and still currently, those roles are clearly defined. And I remember when I myself first got married. And a couple of the elder women sat some of us down, to sort of give us some guidance before our marriage, and they really emphasized the point that Makru also brings up, which is that the strength of the family depends on the sacrifices of a woman, and that the woman is has a huge responsibility to the children. Traditionally speaking, she is in the home, taking care of the house and the children, in educating the children, and that focus is there. And it's not to say that a woman, in the traditional context, wouldn't have a business or something else that she's managing also, but there's her primary responsibility is to managing those things that are happening within the home, and the education of her children, the destiny, tailoring and guiding the children on the appropriate path where they need to go to educate. So family, so it wouldn't just be the mother that gave birth, to that child, but maybe there's other mothers around, there's mother-in-law, there's sisters, there's aunties, all of them working together, to put the energy into ensuring that the children have what they need. So that is there. From my experience through initiation, and then also what I've observed with the man, is that the man has the responsibility, of course, plays a role in the education of the child as well, but he has a responsibility as the kind of, for lack of a better term, breadwinner of the home. So he may be not as present in the home as the mother is, and so therefore his everyday connections or ability to have educational encounters with the child is going to be reduced, because he's working outside the home to ensure that the family has the things that they need to continue to move forward and maintain the home. So we see, again, is not to say that a woman doesn't never has an outside work or an outside job, but there's a balance that'll come with that outside job in maintaining the home, and in caring for and educating those children. Because as soon as a child, when the child is in the womb, and as soon as the child comes out, it's only her that can immediately give the child everything that he or she needs. And there's a little, I'm sure for most women who've gone through that experience, there's not a lot that the father can necessarily do in that moment. But when a child reaches a certain age, when they get a little bit older, it may be then that the child can start having more experiences with the father in terms of the education and the guidance and the development. But in those earlier years, it's going to be the mother kind of playing that role in the child's life, or the women, I should say, will be playing that role.
So what's the spiritual connection and attachment to the mother, to the child?
Well, from the Kemetic tradition, we understand that the mother is in charge of the destiny of a child, and that's the mother that give birth to you, but even the mothers that have preceded and that are in the ancestral realm also have that influence. And so for that, her being in charge of sort of the direction that the child is moving in and the goals that they're trying to accomplish, her influence on the child and the child's education is going to be, it elevates that impact and the responsibility that much more, because she has that responsibility with the child's destiny in her hands.
It's a huge responsibility, though, isn't it? How does it make you feel knowing that all that's you're carrying all that burden? I won't say burden, but yeah, I don't know how to phrase that one.
Yeah, I mean, because that's the thing, I'm just going to grab onto the word that you use, burden. But the thing here is that women take great pride in that responsibility. It's a very honorable responsibility to have, that spirits came to life and they are depending on you in every way to guide them and to educate them and to give them what they need physically, mentally, spiritually, socially for their development. At least in their early years of their life. And there's it's really nice to see here the way in which women hold that responsibility with a lot of dignity. And it's, I guess, for people here that's normal, but coming from the West, we have that kind of perception where it's like work, or it's overwhelming, or it's burdensome, and to the point where now people in that have absorbed a modern lifestyle really many don't even want to have children because of they want to have their freedom or their ability to do what they want to do. And we all know when children come, that they become the kind of main focus of our lives, and our lives are no longer necessarily about us at that point. So, but again, there's a great honor in it. I mean, as a woman, once you reach a certain stage in your life, it's a rite of passage that we go through to bear children and become mothers. So for no question, it's a huge responsibility. And if a child succeeds, they can look at the mother and the father. But if the child somehow stumbles, falls, and fails, that responsibility still lies in the parents too. So
both parents,
it is a huge.
Both parents, or
I mean, it's that's the family. The child comes from a family, so people are going to be looking at the family. But of course, the mother, especially in the formative years, have a big hand in that. And if a father is traveling a lot, or not present as much, it doesn't change the fact that the father has a very deep connection to the identity of the child, but who really was involved in the everyday education of the child, and did you give the child the education? It's like the love that kills, that you all were just reading, that if there's a lack in that education, there can be grave consequences for that too.
Definitely. So in terms of, like we say, we're speaking of education, then the schooling of the child, what importance, what value, what's the significance, how is that done within the culture, and what's your views on basically, say, like homeschooling as opposed to sending your child to the state school and that kind of stuff, and what values or the difference that you would see in you, because as you say, it's the growth of the child. The Western system is not giving that, so just what's your take on that?
think it's important to understand, because I think when in the West, when we talk about the child's education, we think of something that's, outside of the home. And probably, hopefully by the way that I've answered some of the preceding questions, I've made it clear that the education of a child actually begins in the home. And it begins in the, with the extended family and the community that is responsible for that child. That everyday, the everyday life and encounters and, experiences of basic survival, there's so much in the education of just that. I mean, if we decide that, we have a goal and we have principles associated with that goal, and for example, those principles include, honesty and purity and, controlling of the emotions and tolerance and things like that. Well, who's the one to, to enforce those things? And it's the everyday experiences, encounters that those elders and the parents and whoever's around observing and dealing with the child is going to be teaching those lessons throughout. So those, as a mother, I spend a lot of time, talking to my children and enforcing and reinforcing over and over and over again, which I'm sure many parents are familiar with, but that is what is required of the human being in order to eventually learn and have something like a principle embedded in them. So that education, we can't say it's something separate from what takes place in the home and what we have a responsibility to. But, then there's that. But beyond that, then, we have schools that provide our children with instruction. And so, what that looked like and what the options were in the West, and what, once I came here, what options I was looking at here were two, to me, very distinct things, though we call them both school and maybe primary and secondary school. The value system upon which the culture here in West Africa is based, despite the fact that we are I'm living in a city, and there's political and socio-political and economic influences of modernity here. There's still some underlying principles and culture that people are living by. And it's many of those things are unspoken, but the behavior is there. And so the kids being in the school, they're getting those principles and those values passed on from the teachers that they have, and even the peers that they have. So, for example, putting, what the strong influence of having order in your life, or the strong influence of encouragement of hygiene and cleanliness, the importance of social, how you greet and communicate and interact with your elders, these kind of things, the qualities there's a lot of emphasis on those things. And so I myself, when we were living in the West, did not feel comfortable putting my children in the public schools, living in the big cities that we were living in. Just was a decision that my husband and I made not to do. And so as a result, I was homeschooling, my children, and giving them that kind of, reading, writing, science and all of that instruction was happening in the home as well. So, and I know that it's becoming something that more and more people are starting to integrate. But that again, I think it's just important to make the distinction between like the human education, the education that a family has a responsibility to, and supporting and facilitating the development of a human being. And that's one thing. And then you have the instruction that you get through schooling, quote unquote. But then even beyond that, you have your initiatic and the traditions. The people that we're surrounded by. I mean, initiation is the third component of so-called how we have education, instruction, initiation. Everybody has initiation. It's like a fundamental, the same way we in the West see schooling as a basic element of life. Initiation is one of those basic elements that almost everybody around us, even if they're now working in modern sort of colonialist jobs, they had their initiation when they were young. Initiation that teaches a human being how to be a human being, brings you through from being maybe a young girl to understanding what it means to be a young woman or a woman. Taking you from your childhood to your adolescence to being, past your adolescence. Because without that, it's almost like people stay in their adolescence for the duration of their life. So those various components, those three aspects, are all playing a role in the development of the human being to get the, as I said before, the physical, mental, spiritual, and social skills that they need to then accomplish whatever they came to accomplish in life.
Yes, so Hatsuni, what was the age of your children when you arrived at Merita?
Let's see. I had one who was almost 1, and then 3. It's easier for me to tell you how old they are now than to do the math and tell you what they were. But yeah, maybe 1, 3, 5, 7, and 10. And then I have a child staying with me who's also 18 at the time.
Okay, so the reason why I asked the question is to compare the schooling that they received in America at that young age compared to what they received on arriving to Merita. What was the transition like?
Well, like I said, I had them in the home, so them coming to Merita, this was their first experience of immersing themselves in a school, having other teachers and being around. They within the Earth Center community had a lot of experience being with a lot of other adults, and those adults were educating them too. And a lot of children that they were, peer-to-peer interactions, but not on this sort of regularity and amount of time. And so they adjusted quite well to that and enjoy it. And then, of course, they went from English to where we are in Burkina Faso is the colonial language here is French, and so the school that they're in has French instruction completely. So they had to adopt the language, which they also were able to do quite quickly, and are now I could say at least the older couple are fluent French speakers. So.
So I know you've probably gone back to America since being in Burkina Faso. Do you notice, or what difference do you see between the children that are schooled, and I use that term loosely when I say schooling in the West, but the children that are schooled in the West compared to your children who received their schooling in America?
You're asking comparing them in what way specific?
Yeah, if you've seen the difference in, for instance, the principles that they uphold, their interactions with the elders. For instance, here in the UK, when a child starts nursery school, say from about age 4, they don't teach them how to have that reverence to their teachers, their elders. So they teach the children to call the teachers by their first names. And so that's, say, from nursery school until they start in the first year. Or by the second year now, they suddenly switched it, and now the children have to be calling them Miss this and Miss that. So they start backwards. They start by teaching the children not to have respect for their elders, and then try and drum it into them at a later stage after the damage has already been done. And so it was that type of comparison that I was looking at.
Yeah, I guess if I answered that question, maybe I have to think of observations that other people make about the children, and maybe they're doing that sort of comparative analysis. But there's a discipline that is, I think, exemplified. One of the things which I think even in the West, maybe in previous generations, it's clear that there's sort of a separation between the world of children and the world of adults. And a child doesn't integrate themselves into the happenings of the adult world. There's an understanding that there's sort of a boundary there, and if adults are talking, a child doesn't need to present his or her opinion, or interrupt or put him or herself into that conversation and things like this. So those kind of some of those sort of disciplined behaviors, mannerisms, I think I've heard grandparents and other people commenting on those kind of distinctions, because here I think generational separation and gender separation are something that are very much valued. And so, and then like you're saying, the regard for the elders, also like how you, when you see somebody, how you acknowledge them and how you greet them when you see them, these kind of things that are embedded in the culture. Even within the Earth Center community, we are trying to teach our children those things, even in the West. And so I think those distinctions for people that are even outside of our community, when they see there's a distinction there based on those disciplines that have been implemented.
Yeah. You mentioned gender distinctions. I'm sure you know now that in the West we are not allowed to have those gender distinctions. They're actually making it law that we can't even call our daughters her or our sons him. We've got to be calling them it.
Wow. Yeah. I think speaking of education, this is one of the reasons that my husband and I made a decision to relocate here to Merita because we're just going to continue to see more and more of those kinds of changes and laws and things that are going to be impacting the younger generations, and what is considered normalcy is just changing so fast. The point of reference that should be what our ancestors' wisdom is, what the people that preceding us did that always worked, and what works that we see happening in nature that sustained humanity for time memorial. Those things are being lost, and so in order to give them a fighting chance, it seems that bringing people back to a place where that culture and those principles and the values of our forefathers are still intact, provides that, because everywhere you turn, every channel you turn on, every song you listen to, you name it, it's things that are
Derogative.
Putting an influence on us that's kind of taking us away from reality.
I think we'll call that brainwashing. Yeah. Now, I think just by what you've expressed today, I think if the majority of people here in the UK heard what you said, we'll be on a plane now. I really do believe that majority of the people are not for this. This is being imposed upon us by people, small people with their big agendas. So basically, how therefore can we in the West who are not able to travel to live in Merita, in a society such as where you're living, we need to find routes and tools and organize to how to bring our children back to tradition.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Earth Center is just such a blessing. The resources that it provides, and the knowledge that can be obtained for a person and their family on every realm that affects us. And there's a lot that affects us, and then now if we've come here and we didn't have the foundation that we should have been afforded at birth, and then we lived on that foundation for some decades, there's still a possibility to learn things that can then assist us in restructuring, reordering our lives and shifting our perspective. And so, anything that I'm presenting here is not coming from me, myself. It's based on the education that I got, the initiation that I got, the experiences that I obtained that were afforded to me through the Earth Center. I'm in West Africa now because of our master and the road that he paved for us. And so, and that education as an initiate never stops. Every day, I'm learning new things, and those things are assisting me in my various roles that I play, one of which is a parent. And so I just really encourage, people to turn to the Earth Center and communicate with us about the issues that are kind of affecting their everyday life, because we, as a center and the mission that we're trying to move forward on behalf of our master, it gives us the responsibility to assist people with the modern problems that they're facing by providing solutions coming back from our ancestral culture, coming back from home. And we're actually now trying to have more lectures that are streaming live once a month to help us with connecting with the community and providing that opportunity to explore those real topics that are affecting our survival, our everyday life. And then, we also have the membership where people can come on board and, for $50, become a member of the Earth Center and, also participate in some forums and conversations that are directly related to these issues that we're facing. And we really want to hear from people in the community about these things, and the knowledge that the Prophet has left is just for that. It's to give us a real blueprint to navigate our lives with, and it's very practical things that take time to apply and implement in the life because of the miseducation that we got. But once we can put it in there and kind of readjust the lens through which we're viewing life, is a huge benefit for us individually, but also for our families and our communities. So yeah, just also would say that there's a lot. But if people, if you're in a place where you don't have access to an Earth Center, of course we have all those things that I just mentioned, like being a member and things you can do from any remote location. And then all our products, give you, like you're reading from the Tales of Hejta. That's a great resource to explore some of these topics with our youth about principles and values.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So in terms of like discipline, I mean, we know that discipline is one of the important things within the tradition, yeah? And they say within the tradition, discipline is something that you can't impose on a person. So it's something that comes from within. So in terms of like disciplining a child, how does the tradition, how do they implement that when a child gets out of, yeah? Because I mean, you've got 7 children there, you're saying, so I'm sure you've got a handful there. How in the tradition is that done differently to how it's done here in the West?
You're talking about like specifically when a child is out of order?
Yeah, and the child learning its values as well, because that's all part of it, really, in knowing the mother's got a role, the father's got a role, but the child also has a role. And the reason why that was coming in my questioning was that I was speaking to Mama Himata, and she was saying to me, she noticed that even the young children are given responsibilities as well, as the parents have responsibilities. And I know, even from my own experience, like in Jamaica, seeing from a young age a child is guided to sustain itself, to look out for itself. They're taught certain values from a young age. Here in the West, it might be classed as child abuse, whereas there it's a part of their survival, and them, growing up to be responsible.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Right, because before we can reprimand a child for going out of order, we have to ensure that they're clear what the order is. And so that happens at a very young age. And as like you're mentioning, that kind of exposure and guidance for a child to be a responsible member of a family and an active member of the family happens young. It's step by step, but it happens young. And so, interestingly, at least even for me, growing up in the West, the the household responsibility or the perception of what a child is capable of doing within the home can be rather limited. In some cases, I think people benefited from having more responsibilities too. But the child can learn early how they can, assist with their other siblings or assist with, the cleaning or the cooking or, whatever the situation may be. Everybody has a role and a contribution to make to help the machine kind of run smoothly, because that's also part of parenting. Like the parent themselves needs to maintain a level of balance and harmony for themselves too, and that comes by incorporating the children into the process of what's going on in the everyday life, so that they can pick up those skills for themselves as youth and have those as tools as they get older, but also to just help with the fluidity of what's going on in the family and in the community, because if you have 5 children and they're all sort of passive and uninvolved, that leaves a lot of work and responsibility on the shoulders of either one parent or whoever the older people are that are having to carry that weight. So in teaching a child to do that, there's constant repetition and instruction and conversation and implementation of discipline in order for them to understand what the value is of what they're doing, and of course what that looks like to a 4 or 5 year old in a conversation is going to be something different for a 10-year-old, is something different for a 15-year-old, and so on. So I see the youth here are they're highly involved, and what we could even consider very mature in their capabilities at a young age. And it just shows you the capacity of a human being is being undermined, because in the West, oftentimes what I see is I'll just do it for you, or there's no enforcement of, this is a human being that is very intelligent, that knows how to think, knows how to manipulate, and is capable of doing this, but I'm still going to just let them lay back and I'm going to do it for them. And then it becomes a cycle where it's like, what stage does this end? Because youth they pick up things so quickly, and bad habits come in very fast too. So if that order, that discipline, or that education isn't given early on, it just becomes more challenging for that person, and then even for the parent, because if we think by the time the person's a teenager, now I'm going to have some expectations for them, well, in many circumstances it's going to be late because they've already developed habits.
And how much part does the father actually play? Because you were saying before that it's the mother really, right, that is running the home. The father is out kind of providing. So in terms of his interaction, at what stage does he get involved, or is it solely down to the mother side really? That's her role that she's playing all the way through that child's life, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I mean, as long as a father or a man is present, the household, the people, the adults in the household have a common goal, a common understanding of the direction that they're trying to move in with the development of the child or the children. Everybody's participating in whatever capacity is relevant to them and their relationship and their circumstances with the child. I don't want to present like a misunderstanding that men are hands off, because that's not the case. If a man is around, if they are present, and this can be in the community that we have here, that's many different men. It's not just in my case, the father of my children, but it's the men that they may be seeing, every week or every other day, whatever it might be. But they all play a role, because the thing that you see here is everybody will be moving in the same direction, because the general understanding of what the principles are the same. And so that makes it much easier to guide a child, because if you see something that's outside of the boundaries of what everyone's common expectation is, it's easy to redirect. That becomes more complicated when you have people with varying expectations or varying principles, then that adds a strong level of complexity to the situation.
Well, confusion really, because it's mixed messages really, isn't it? You go over here, someone telling you something this, and then you go over there, child doesn't really know what to do, because as you say, there's nothing structural there. I mean, here, they have, they do their research and surveys, and they have supposedly 4 different types of parenting skills or types, and I was, their views on traditional. Well, they recognize. I think the Western, they recognize that the traditional has values, and for all the things that you've highlighted, they recognize that the child is more. It fits in more into his community, into the world. It knows its role that he's playing, whereas here, these 4 different rules they have I think they categorize it something like authoritative, permissive, and was it you're unattached, uninvolved, and so we have this type of parenting over here, because people are confused. They don't know what to do. They don't know what a good parent is. I belong to a fathers group, Black Father Support Group, and we've actually had fathers or coming in not having a father there and not growing up within that community there to know what his role really is and how he can guide his child. And he actually came there for information. And so when people are going online and places like reading books of probably people who never have children, guiding them as what it or how it should or what they should be, to how to be a parent. And so this authoritarian is where it's rigid, and it's just like a dictatorship really there. It's a disciplinarian kind of concept. The permissive, according to them, is where that parent doesn't really put out no structure, no discipline. The child is free to do what it wants. It doesn't want to upset the child, so it allows the child to do what it wants. And then they have the authoritative, which you have a structure there, and so that sounds a little bit more like the Kemetic way or the traditional way, where there's structure. There's the child knows what to do. There's a structure there, because we all need some sort of a structure in our life. You can't just let people just do whatever they want. There has to be some kind of order and discipline there, really, for that child to have certain values,
Right, for sure. Yeah, and I mean, I think, people like order. They like structure. They like, they like things that make sense to the brain, So, for example, if a child knows that when they wake up, these are the things that they're supposed to do, that helps them to make sense of what's going on around them, and that kind of repetition, where they know how they fit into the harmony of what's going on. But if the child wakes up and there's no concept of that, and they're just sort of wandering here, wandering there, figuring out, what they're to do, and maybe we think, oh, the child is free, and so somehow that's good or that's nice. It's not benefiting. it's not benefiting them in that situation. Surely children need the space to be children and to play and all of that, but even that needs to happen within some boundaries or some structure, you know.
Yeah, most definitely. Because there's also that type of parent that they have it as the uninvolved, where he just basically gives food and clothing and that's it. There's total detachment. Now, what you were saying about the community there, even if the parent themselves abandon it, there is always that community there, really, right, to help to raise that child as well. So
Exactly.
when one parent fails here, everything is crashed. Whereas there's always that support that can still help to bring that child forward.
Right, and that's another thing I notice with adults here is they have a compassion and ability to when children are around, despite whether it's their child or not, to just deal with all of the children as their own.
Yeah.
You see a child needs to eat, you give the child food. You see the child is going into the wrong direction or potentially getting into something that isn't going to be helpful for them. You say something, you re-guide them, redirect them. All of that. Whatever the case may be, that whatever the need is, people step in and fulfill the need because it's a child. And there's a proverb, when a child is in the womb, it belongs to the mother, but once the child comes out, it belongs to the world, right?
Yeah.
And so they live that because it's everybody's responsibility to have some involvement in the guidance and the development of the child. So the notion of individualism and independence has plagued the West. And in the process, we've definitely lost a lot of what family is and the benefits that come with, all the support and the education that comes with being part of a community that's your family. That's wealth. That's a strong resource for any human being anywhere you go. If you have that backing you, it's a huge resource that we have been disconnected from because of sort of the emphasis on the independence, individuality, the nuclear family emphasis, and what we talked about earlier, which is like children are burdensome, so like the units are getting smaller and smaller too.
So what what qualities would you say it takes to be a parent? What are the qualities to make a good parent out there? Would you say that you need to have? I know you've mentioned before, like emotional, like what we've learned through the Per Hank. But in terms of what would you say what qualities you would need to be a parent, or it takes?
Wow, there's so many qualities that are needed because it's like a human being training other human beings. So what qualities does a human being need? That shifts depending on the circumstance. But I think when you're responsible for the development of a human being on every level, as a parent, and then even as a teacher or a guide, we can't deny that patience and tolerance are very important qualities to have, because Human beings by nature, one thing is relative to almost every other animal, our evolution process is very slow from the time of birth to when we're capable of kind of standing on our own 2 feet to do things without the assistance of a mother or father or some kind of guardian. That's a long process.
Mm-hmm.
And that takes a lot of patience and tolerance. And then so there's that slowness of evolution, and adaptation, but then there's also the fact that human beings are just corruptible by nature. If you give a human being a reason to take the easy way out, or to do the thing that's maybe less demanding but gives you more return, person is going to gravitate towards that. We gravitate towards what's comfortable and what's sweet, but those are not the things that build the quality and the character in the long term, to give you the skills that you need to be a human being that's capable of surviving and progressing, maybe in the way that even any one of us may wish, or whatever your goals may be, that or the reason you came to life. We all have that, purpose or reason we came to life, and so to accomplish those things, you need certain qualities and characteristics, and in order to develop those, that takes time. From our very young years to our older, youth years and all of that. I mean, even when a person is in their 20s, they're still making all kinds of, mistakes, because the youth is still, our youthfulness is still there. So that patience and tolerance is very important as a parent or as a guide, for whoever brings. If we're holding somebody's life in our hands, we have sort of an obligation to demonstrate those qualities.
So like in the West, I mean, you're in an environment, right, where things is on a easygoing pace, where people are not racing backwards and forward, really, like we are here. How here in the West, when your everyday is rushing from A to B, people are impatient just in their everyday life, just yet alone the other aspect where it really matters. And so we can see like the demise, really, isn't it, where the breakdown is, that lack of patience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
Sorry, go
on. It's, I can say that it's just a quality even for us as parents that we have to constantly be working on and working to refine. If it's not something that we have, then we will just step by step. And I'm not saying it because it's something that I myself have in any way mastered, but whatever qualities we're exemplifying, those are the ones that we're going to see our children mirroring. Mm-hmm. And so, whoever is listening, maybe we don't all have the same goals, but if you are wishing to, reach a certain place within yourself, then and you have qualities or characteristics that you want to implement in your life, and whatever discipline you have is built around refining or developing those qualities or characteristics. The children are just going to be watching and implementing whatever those things are that you are doing. So yeah, I mean, I can't. The fast pace of life in the U.S. For me, living there, what I always had to do was make sure that I was prioritizing and reprioritizing, and kind of simplifying my life based on what it is that I'm trying to accomplish for myself and my family. And then because there's so many distractions in the West, and so trying to keep a lot of those things at bay so that I could be focused on, what are my priorities here? Where am I trying to go myself and with my family, and then constantly revisiting that and making sure I'm not, allowing other things to cause those priorities to be drowning and disappearing. So it's not easy by any stretch of the imagination, but initiation, like I said before, it helps so much with providing that foundation where things that seem so difficult or even insurmountable at certain points in time are able to be done with a certain level of ease now. Maybe because there's some education that I got, and some inner work I had to do in myself to get there, but also because addressing the relationships that we have with our ancestors, and all the things that support us as a spirit that comes to life, and our children, the same, addressing those things is going to bring a level of harmony into your life that no matter what you do on the physical side, if you're only addressing the physical side, is just going to, you're not going to, there's going to be a difficulty in reaching that same level of harmony. It's not to say that there are, people who feel as though they have a harmonious life and maybe they're not addressing those things, but I can say for myself and, many people who I've talked to that stability or that foundation, really brought a lot. That's assisting us in, our own development, our own management of our family lives, our, relationships with our children, and all of those things. So it's difficult for me to, if I have to take my initiation and my cultural education that I've gotten since the last, 12, 13 years, if I were to take that out, who I am is not the same person you're talking to right now. The night is more than a night and day difference. So I just really wish on anybody who's seeking any of the things that I've been mentioning, or if anything that I'm saying or we're saying is resonating with them, the Earth Center is just a huge resource.
And Hatsuni, very quickly, how old did you say that your eldest is, please?
I didn't hear your question.
How old is the eldest child? Is it a teen?
Well, yeah, as I mentioned, I have right now living with me a 20-year-old, and so, but of the children that I've been rearing as my own, the eldest is 12.
Okay. The reason why I ask, I've got a 20-year-old and a 16-year-old, and as far as they're concerned, they don't see like a future in Merita, because when you're dealing with the technology and all the social media and all the hype, they don't see what Africa has to offer to them as a young generation, as children who want to move forward with their careers. And they've been caught up in the hype that they have to stay in the West, they have to get their university degrees here, and they have to be working for Europeans, basically, in order to succeed in life. So what could you impart to someone of that age to let them see that there is actually a future outside of the West for the youth?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good question, and it's not necessarily an easy one. Though many things that we were talking about aren't easy. But the reality of it is that modernization is happening, and you and I are benefiting from it, and the children that have come after us, or the people that have come after us, are just they're embedded in many things that we can just kind of categorically call modernization. It's I myself, and even my education, initiatic education, I don't think that we're saying that aspects of modernity don't have their place. For me to even be talking to you, is coming from modernization right now. So YouTube and all these things, but how can we impart on even our teens, as you're explaining in your situation, how can we impart on them that despite those things that you have, whatever the material things are, whatever the colonial education is that you're getting, how can we teach them that honoring your ancestors is an aspect that can come to supplement and benefit your life too. It's not one or the other. It doesn't have to be one or the other. I like to think that we need to build a bridge between what we're calling tradition and what we're calling modernity, because we can use both. I mean, because even when we say traditional parenting versus modern parenting, or traditional education versus modern education, I mean, at the root of it, we're still talking about the development of the human being in every aspect. And so, people have, from the beginning of whatever time we're talking about, people have had to do that. I mean, people will come to life, they have to develop mentally, socially, physically, spiritually. That's just what human beings have to do in life. But now we have this dichotomy of modern and whatever people want to call tradition, or the ways of our ancestors. And but what our ancestors did is still what we need to do. And when we do it, it still benefits us the way it benefited them. And so how can you still have your cell phone and your university degree, but still take care of your ancestors and your divinities and whatever it is that is going to feed you, feed them, and elevate you and elevate them? I think we, have to do a better job at because us here talking, we're initiates, and we have a certain background because we had a yearning or a calling, to come to this. But not everybody wants to be a disciple. Not everybody necessarily wants to repatriate. And so, if we have a responsibility to reconnect humanity, which is anybody and everybody, no matter what your background is, this belonged to you at one point in time. It was what was normal. And so despite the changing times and whatever is happening around us, how can you still take care of those things that are not, is just taking care of you, is nothing separate or outside of yourself. And so if we can kind of help our older children to have some understanding of that, so that they don't necessarily feel like they have to abandon everything that they're standing on, because they don't. Because a traditional person can still drive a nice car and, still hold a nice bag and still eat at a restaurant and still be taking care, of their ancestors. And so, I think, of course, coming back here and being able to, sort of dive in and integrate yourself into what's happening on the continent itself to really get the cultural exposure and the perspective shift, sure, that would be very good if people can do that. But if they can't, and if that's not what they want, the Earth Center, the traditions, the Kemetic temples still has something for all of them too, right? So however your children, or anybody's older children, however you know them and what they like and what they don't like and how they receive information, if there's a way to kind of help them to make that click, that's going to benefit them, benefit you, benefit, your lines and all of that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. It does in many ways. It does in many ways. But most importantly, I think also that they need to actually understand and know that they have to be in harmonization with nature, no matter where you may be. You could be living in a concrete jungle. The nature is still around you. And if you cannot recognize yourself as being a part of that and living harmoniously with that and tapping into the energies and receiving the messages from the earth, from your ancestors, in order to catapult you further on your journey. If you can't see those things because you're distracted by all the isms and the schisms and the distractions that have been put in our place, then there's no future for the next generation, regardless of where they are or what culture they come from or who their ancestors are. Because I know even in the UK, the original people of this land, they loved nature. They lived in harmony with nature. And so as long as the next generation realize that they are one and part of it all, then I don't think there's a future for them.
Yeah, I think all of us are being tested now with, what has happened with COVID and, the shifts that people have had to make. But I think the earth and nature are taking a stand. So we will be forced to have to, make adjustments to fit or not. So yeah, you're right about that.
Well, what happens if there was programs though, bringing children down like on like a work experience where they go abroad? We have people come from other countries, they come in there for work for experiences, aren't they? Like where children was given a few weeks, a couple of months or something like that, where they can actually come down there and
exchange programs, they call them.
Something like that.
Yeah.
If they would encourage that more, so that slowly they get like a taster and that appreciation that is not as bad as what they think, because I think most of the information that they're getting is what they see on, negative images or stereotype of what Africa or America really is. So having those experiences sometime would change the way that they perceive things to be.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't know if you were asking me a question.
Yeah, well, I'm just having your idea, what your thoughts are on that, really, like having that exchange program there to help to adjust them, to bring them in,
Yeah, I mean, I know coming up as a teen, those kind of programs were always very eye-opening and very beneficial. And then one of those things that even if maybe in the moment you don't understand everything that you're getting from it, you have it as a point of reference as you get older. And that's the same thing for the pilgrimage experience that, we get when we come to Merita and, travel and experience things here. As you're in it, you may not even realize the strong value and all that you're really gaining from it. And then when you go back, you have many moments and opportunities to reflect and compare and contrast and things like that, and it's an eye-opening experience. So those opportunities are priceless. And I think like the prophet, he had his initiatic educations. Of course, he had his colonial education. He had his world travel, and all of those helped to build a human being that's has a capability of encountering and surviving in many different diverse circumstances. So opportunities like that are very good.
Yeah.
Well, that's definitely going to be a future program, that initiative, I should say, that Nahib says the king for the UK. So it was his baby. He just planted that seed right here on air. So it will be a good one. It will be a good one.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, here in the traditions, the initiations start at the age of 7, and so that's like a ripe age to start kind of educating a child into these aspects of life by somebody besides just the parent and or the immediate community, and so if we can get our youth involved in these kinds of educational programs and immersion into whatever the cultural values and principles you're wishing to instill to help them to evolve, can start getting that even coming from like a master or a teacher that's outside of the home or the immediate everyday community environment, is going to be beneficial to them just enhancing their tools that they have to utilize later in life. So
yes, what age does initiation stop for the children when they start at 7?
You said what? What was the question?
What age, if they start initiation at age 7, when does that section of initiation end? What age?
I'm not really sure how that would if there's a particular age, because it looks like with initiation, if there's a completion of an initiation with one like teacher or master, and then you say, speaking of a particular child, and they are now ready to embark on another a deeper aspect of an initiation in a particular area, or they need a different skill, they're going to maybe be passed to another teacher, another master who can give them what they need there. Okay. And so that process can continue. So I think initiations for people can be an ongoing thing.
Yeah,
it's a life experience.
Because probably from their name, from their birth, they're already told what their destiny is, so it would be developed from that stage then, yes.
Right, or if the family itself has a particular line of work that they're invested in, then there may be initiations surrounding that particular line of work. Whatever it may be, if it's music related, or if it's healing related, or if it's working with like iron, or whatever that may be.
That's really amazing. We have so much has been stolen from us, and I have to give thanks to the Makaru, and in the years to come, my children's generation, it will be an automatic thing for them to be going through initiation as opposed to what it is now. So Yeah, ever thankful to the Makaro. I
Yeah.
had to, yeah, go on, son.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, we've run over time and it's been so enlightening and empowering speaking to you.
Yeah, Dual, thank you so much for having me on this evening and discussing this topic that is near and dear to so many of us. And I'm grateful, just like you said, to our master and to Naba Irita and to all those who have kept this knowledge together, and all the opportunities that we've been afforded to continue our advancement, our evolution, so we can benefit those that are coming behind us, who we're hugely responsible for. So thank you.
Yeah, I echo your same sentiment there, really, right? And likewise, we gratefully give thanks for your presence, and it's a lot of information and knowledge, things that you've put out there. So we're just hoping that those who are listening, you've got the experience. So it's not like someone who's speaking, like say, just from a textbook. It's you've seen both sides, so there's a balanced opinion there of your views and values. And in the future, if there another interesting topic comes up, we hope that you would come on and assist us really in disseminating the information and the knowledge that the Macro has given us. And we're truly grateful, and wish you and your family the best and on your journey, and just to keep evolving as we all trying to be. I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
All right,
Dua hatani iriru. Neta dua.
And we give thanks there for our Attorney Jazwa Shemzura, and it's for coming from Merita, we call Africa, Burkina Faso, that area of West Africa. And so we want to give thanks. Oh yeah, we got some stuff to read out. Yeah. You go for it.
Yes, as Jasra mentioned, some of the knowledge that one can obtain through the lectures that the Earth Center is holding. So the next lecture is going to be on the 26th of July. And that lecture is entitled Self-Identity, Self-Pride or Self-Hate. If you follow us on YouTube, on Facebook and Instagram, you'll see all the information relating to this lecture. That is on July the 26th, and that is at 4 p.m. CST, 10 p.m. BST UK time. So if you go onto the YouTube, the Earth Center, CENTER, you can find the events page and click on and sign up to be part of this lecture, which will be streamed live on the YouTube.
And if anyone wants to contact our UK branch in London here for the Earth Center, for the temple, we're at 21 Sunnyside Road, London, E10 7BB.
Yes, the email address is inquiries-uk@theearthcenter.org, and the Facebook page for the UK is the Earth Center UK and the Earth Center Coventry.
And the telephone number?
The telephone number for the UK, London, is 0208 558 3678, and Coventry it is 0247 6266 859. So if you follow the Earth Center. You'll find all of the Earth Center temples on Facebook, and the web page is www.theearthcenter.org and www.theearthcenteruk.com. At those websites you can find the book that I was reading from today, The Initiatic Tales of Hejpatah, the Philosophy Podium, A Dogon Perspective, both written by Master Naba Lamusa Moradenebig. Also the Book of Purification, written by Master Naba and Naba Irita Shinmera. Also you will find the
Calendar,
the sidereal calendar, the Kemetic sidereal calendar,
which has got all the spiritual days.
which has it acknowledges and shows one the spiritual days of activity, honoring our ancestors, ancestral holy day, divine holy day activities. It puts you in time and space. And also there is the Dendera, which is a map, the oldest map of the cosmos. And then last but not least, the Code of Human Behavior, the 77 Commandment. So go onto our web pages, please. Facebook, like us and follow us. And also on Instagram. Instagram, it's the Earth Center of UK. And also Kebtah, Kebtah.
And additionally as well, there are CDs, audios and videos of lectures and things that Master Naba presented himself. So, and they're on various different topics, which more or less is covering a lot of areas dealing with initiation as well, certain,
And snippets of that is found on the Earth Center YouTube page. So if you just search for that, the Earth Center on YouTube, you'll see Master Naba sections of his lectures.
I remember next week, or the 21st, as we said, it's the date that Master Naba transitioned, and so on that day we'll be kind of paying our honor and our respect to him by a day of fasting and reverence to him. So for those who, you can still do that from your home. You don't have to come to the temple or whatever, but just acknowledge really right that the information that the Earth Center is sharing with you, it was Master Naba that actually, got that sort of permission from the elders, because this is knowledge and things they've been sitting down for and preserving for a very long time. And so thousands of years. So it's not something to be taken lightly, really. And us as initiates, really, who's gone through initiation, we can truly say that, we've got our challenges to deal with, but at the same time, we've got that goal and that direction there of knowing, the tools really to try to get to where we want to, or where we should be getting to. So.
And for those of you who wish to embark upon the journey of initiation, there will be orientations across the Earth Center's temples in due course, hopefully once the COVID pandemic has subsided slightly, so that we can get together and have orientation, so people can come in and get to sit with initiates, hear what initiation is all about, and decide whether or not to embark upon a journey. So as I said, you'll find all that information once you're following us on Facebook and or Instagram.
And on that note, we would just like to give thanks, to say dua to bless for allowing us this space. And we're grateful to have this space, really. And I know that he is just as keen as us, really, with this information. So, he recognized the value of it. So, we give thanks for him for giving us this space from the Earth Center. Yeah. And on that note, my name is Nehibsa Nesibik. And
Kasati Hekama, and we say Iriru
to everyone. And next strong, this same time, this next week, we will have Katastafara hosting the next Earth Center Wisdom of the Nile show. So until then, we'll play you out. Please plug me out.
This song goes in the memory of the beloved prophet Nebnabala Musa Murden Big, the doggone prince. Maher, the truth. Listen up, I'll be appreciated.
Everyone is sitting.
Follow truth and you shall find him. He's the definition of humanity. He's the beginning and the end. He's the prophet now. Far away, from far away, far away, from far away. West Africa, from far away, prophet Naba, far away, La Musa, far away, far away, my prophet from far away, prophet Naba, far away, from far away, from far away, prophet from far away. Bob Marley say, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Have no fear for atomic energy, cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophet while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. We gotta fulfill the boy. Come to Maheru, come to Maheru, come to Maheru. He got your own told story. I'm from far away, I'm from far away.